Hello and welcome to Soccer to the Max. Yes, we are here, we are back, and the season has begun for Major League Soccer. Well, it's 2 weeks now, but hey, who's counting? And hey, the whole cast is here, so that's the most important part. Of course, I'm your host, Sean Garmer, and here with me, the lovely Miss Rachael McKriger.
Hello, hello, hello. 2 matches, 2 wins for Seattle. You've got a happy co-host on you tonight.
That is always a good thing when you have a happy co-host. Well, I don't know. Rachael does some pretty awesome rants, so, you know. And, of course, we couldn't have the show without the awesome Erik Watkins.
If only I had learned to speak Italian, I could have played in the last ever Pro Piacenza match. I wouldn't have scored, but maybe it wouldn't have been 20-0. I don't know.
Leave it to Erik to bring up the most off-the-wall thing.
Look, I mean, again, you have a 19-year-old coach, 7 teenagers against a full squad of grown men. I saw that story. How could I not talk about it?
Fair enough. But, the good thing is since it's the start of the season, we can actually all say that all of our teams are doing well right now. Maybe one more than the other for Erik, but that's what happens when you have 2 teams, I guess.
Why can't both of them be good simultaneously? And why are you giving me false hope, Ben? I see what you're doing. It's only 2 weeks.
We're not even 5 minutes in and we got our first Ben. I think that's... I don't know. That might be a record.
I've been seeing the matches. I can't help it. And how dare you try to grow facial hair?
Well, at least Bill is doing his job. So that's the ever more interesting part than Ben. But hey, maybe we'll get another one-word fill-in pretty quick here because just wrapped up pretty recently, the SheBelieves Cup. U.S. Women's National Team, not so hot, even though they had a chance to win on the final day. England wound up taking it all. U.S. winds up in second. Although pretty disappointing, I have to say. Overall, though, Rachael, wouldn't you think?
Disappointing isn't even the right word to use. The competition was there. England brought a really good team. Japan, no matter what, whether they're young or old, they always bring a good team. But Brazil has just been so bad lately that's probably your one and only downfall. But it's the U.S. Women's National Team. You need to prepare. You need to perform, and that's not what they did. Part of it is that Jill Ellis is still bringing these injured players onto the roster. I love Becky Sauerbrunn, and I'll always support her, but you've got her injured for the first 2 matches. What good does that help anybody? It's frustrating. Just watching the team throughout all of those matches were frustrating. It didn't help that Alyssa Nair was hurt throughout the tournament. They did use all 3 goalkeepers, but I do have to say, even though 2 goals went past her, I don't think Adriana France should just be a one and done. I think she deserves another chance. And you're not going to know what type of goalkeeper she is unless you give her that second chance, because you can't just be like, hey, go in, 2 goals went past you, and then not even give her a chance to rebound. So ball's kind of in Jill's court on if she's going to let her start again. But I really think she should. It's clear that Nair's the obvious number 1, but I think France has kind of offset Ashlyn Harris for that number 2 spot.
Yeah, I think you got to put it in perspective as well. This is without NWSL even being in training camp, so they're having a lot of these players are playing pretty much off the off season, which maybe that has a little bit to do with it. To be fair, they didn't lose any of the games either. 2-2 on 2 of the toughest teams out there in women's soccer, and then you didn't put on a great performance against the Brazil team that, like you said, hasn't been the best, but you won. So, on U.S. soil, I guess decent. It does make you wonder if anything would have been different if, say, you had time for Jill to pick players that she'd seen play in NWSL instead of having to go with the old familiars and take some of those injured players, like you said.
Well, her lineup choices were so bad. Like in that first match, her lineup choices were so bad. Her substitutes were not there. The only good substitute was Press. I mean, Alex Morgan, I think, will be on the hunt for 100 goals heading into the World Cup with just like she hasn't been finishing anything lately. It was frustrating to watch Jill just kind of pick players and put them in like little random positions. Like you have substitutes that aren't. Now, granted, not every substitute has to be like for like, but they should at least make sense. And most of them didn't. And I'm kind of sick of the fact that it feels like every single game, Carly Lloyd has to be in it. Like, oh, if we don't put Carly Lloyd in, we're going to upset those fangirls. Well, quit caring about the little fangirls and care about your actual team. Jill. And quit playing Crystal Dunn as a freaking right or left back. It's stupid.
I was about to say, Rachel hadn't given us that Jill yet.
So. Oh, she's going to get her Jill. You wait till the World Cup.
Maybe before the World Cup, if they play like this in friendlies, who knows?
You're damn right.
Erik, anything on your end about?
I mean, seeing it, it looked like, I get that you're trying to use, like, your heritage and not so much resting on your laurels, but like Rachel said, getting like some of those bigger name players. But you have to understand, you've got such a bigger player pool than you did even a couple of years ago. You really have to take this time, even with the SheBelieves Cup, and now drawing into these last couple of friendlies right before the tournament starts, to gel and get not only the right mix of healthy, proven, capable veteran talent to help launch you into winning a tournament and repeating, which is something we've never done, and getting that fresh new face, that young crop, so that way they get experience in a World Cup, but you can also look forward to 2023. It's like Jill has been very, very static with this team, and that will only take us but so far come France.
Yeah, if anything, Women's World Cup has shown, or is going to show, that the women's game's catching up. You know, she's used some young players here and there, but hopefully more of them get a chance to shine and make things difficult for her when it comes to World Cup picking time. You know, you never know. There's a whole half of a season left for NWSL. You don't know who's going to get hurt. Maybe some choices are going to get made for her as far as, some of these players that you go, why are they still taking her? Why is she still getting, picked? It's still a lot to go, and we'll see what happens there. But something that might even be farther reaching than, say, what happens at this World Cup. And what happens at the World Cup could generally define part of this big event that happened on International Women's Day. The U.S. Women's National Team filed an actual federal court a lawsuit against U.S. Soccer, stating that there was a violation of the Equal Pay Act and the Title VII Civil Rights Act, basically wanting equal pay for equal work when it relates to, hey, the men get big money for what they do, and perhaps the women actually do more than the men, especially if you look at results in big tournaments. And, they're not giving them equal promotion for their games as opposed to the men's national team games, equal training facilities, travel conditions, all those kinds of things that, it's a no-brainer when it comes to the men, but the women don't necessarily get that. And, what do you think, Rachel? Do they have a point here?
They definitely have a point. I mean, just I think one of the misconceptions about, or something, I wouldn't even say misconceptions. One of the things I hear a lot is that, obviously the women don't make enough revenue at their games with like ticket sales and whatnot as the men do. And that's totally fair argument. But also at the same time, the women are playing in a lot smaller stadiums. They're not playing in MetLife like U.S. men's national team will. They're not playing in, say, StubHub. I know they're playing at the Bank of California Stadium coming up, but still, I mean, there is that talk that there's not enough revenue for paying these players. But I mean, U.S. soccer does have the money. They do have the money. And I mean, you've seen Adidas has come out to support these players, saying that they're going to get the same bonus and pay as the men do. The American Outlaws had a statement today saying that they're going to support the women's national team. I think the timing is interesting, but I think it makes sense because, what if they do win the World Cup? They're not going to get paid the right money that they should. I mean, the pay difference between, I don't know it off the top of my head, but between the men in 2014 making it to the round of 16 and the women winning the World Cup was still a very large difference. I think you guys know more than anything. I am on the side of, I'm huge on the saying one nation, one team. I think there's a lot of U.S. women's national team fans that are out there saying, you can't support either because of the pay gap and stuff. Well, no, that's not how rooting for your national team works. But I mean, it is fair. It's fair to give these players what they deserve. They have worked hard for it. And, you're going to hear, the competition isn't the same. Well, yeah, that's true. But like you alluded to, Sean, the competition is rising. I mean, look at the CONCACAF tournament this past October. These teams, like Panama, gave them a run for their money with Eunice Bailey in goal. I mean, it's just the competition's rising up. And all in all, at the end of the day, it's just equal play, equal pay. They're playing for 90 minutes just like the men are.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I think it's really unfair to also compare ticket sales because, the men have established powers. Aside from the U.S. men's national team, you have Mexico, that anywhere they go in the United States, they draw an audience perhaps even bigger than the U.S. in many locations where there's a huge Latino population. Some of the, Costa Rica will draw an audience, Honduras will draw an audience. You can't say that for, the women's. You have basically the women's national team, Canada, which... it's different from the men. You don't have the Canadians' men's national team doesn't draw what the women's national team does. Has to do a lot with, women's national teams. Same with the women's national team here in the U.S., where they've done way more than their men's national team counterpart. But still, I think when you look at it from that perspective too, it's so hard to draw ticket comparisons because the men have these other powers in CONCACAF that help them out. When you say you have a Gold Cup, you can put Mexico anywhere and go, they're going to draw. So those are 3 games we don't have to worry about. Same with the U.S. team. You put Costa Rica separate or Honduras separate, depending on where you are, they'll draw as well. Panama even. The women, it's not there for them yet. So and may never be there for them because some of those countries may never pay attention to their women's teams as much as they do the men's. So, and that's not fair to the women's national teams.
Well, and that's a good point too. And just look at the players too. If you say you have the men's national team hosting Argentina, everyone can pick out a player on that team, whether it's Lionel Messi, Suarez, anyone. You can pick out a player. You have the women's national team, unless you're a Washington Spirit fan who used to know Estefania Bonini, you're not really going to know anybody on that team. Bringing New Zealand in, I think they're playing them in the beginning of April. The only player that you really know on that team is Rosie White and Abby Erceg. You just don't have the popularity, the audience, because no matter what, you host a game against Brazil, Argentina, Germany. I mean, even like you said, Costa Rica, people are at least going to pick out maybe 5 players, whether they're U.S. national team fans or say, Costa Rican fans, they'd probably still watch or go to the game just because they know the significance of the player on the opposing team. I mean, like, you've seen how crowded the stadium got in Houston whenever the United States played Argentina in the Centenario tournament. I mean, one player can make a huge difference. And I think in the women's game, unless you're playing, in Australia, a Canada, Brazil, kind of England, you just don't really have that same effect. Like, I love my Russian national team, but like, nobody really blinked an eye whenever the women's national team played them. I think that was in 2017. Like, it's just like, who are you going to pick out from that team? Like, it's just the popularity can make a huge difference.
Well, and that too, I think you're also bringing up the tournaments. The women don't really have, there's no Gold Cup for the women, so you don't have that secondary international tournament that you go, oh, well, this will also draw like the World Cup does or whatever. You don't have a Centenario for the women where the South American teams can come and play the women's national team or whatever. And also, a lot of those South American teams are not going to draw either because they're just now starting to pay attention to their women's teams, just like Mexico. So it's very much an unequal thing all the way around. But when you have your women's national team outdoing what your men's national team does on the field, like you pointed out, Rachel, in the discrepancy between 2014 and 2015, they don't even need to win the World Cup now. They've already done it, and they're showing, hey, like, how many times have we got to win this World Cup before you guys start paying us the way we should? And not to mention that, like, if you go back and think about it, how much of what the women have done can you attribute to people caring about MLS and people caring about soccer at the youth level and all of that? Like, there's so many, not just from 2015, but you go back to the 99 team, all that, those iconic moments in those times of people going, oh, my little girl now wants to play soccer, and my boy wants to play soccer too. And that's the thing, people don't give them enough credit for that either, of saying, it wasn't just MLS, it wasn't just the World Cup in 94, it was the World Cup win in 91, it was the World Cup win in 99, the World Cup win in 2015. Like, the women deserve their moment, and they totally deserve the equal pay.
And I'm also going to add to that, you mentioned just the World Cup wins. In the span since 1990, even when the men's team started their run of consecutive qualifying that ended with Trinidad and Tobago, the men's team has not gotten past the quarterfinals and has crashed out of the group stage multiple times. The women's team, not only are they multiple winners, they've never finished worse than third. And that's just at the World Cup. You talk about a secondary tournament, the Olympics. Well, the women's team tacked on 2 Olympic gold medals, 96 and 04. So you just have consistent runs of success, despite, and I have seen this globally in a lot of sports, team sports in particular, between men's and women's, a very stagnated development. The first men's World Cup was in 1930. Well, the women's World Cup wasn't until 1991. Yes, you've had the Olympics, I guess, both like men's and women's teams for some time, but because there's no development of these secondary tournaments that you're talking about, even a lot of leagues internationally, only within the past couple of decades have you seen that growth and money funneling in to even create women's leagues and be sustainable. The Olympics are that secondary tournament, whereas for the men, it's basically a U23. I think now that all of these decades where they've been lagging behind is really starting to catch up and bite them. And now, hopefully with this lawsuit, they don't just address equal pay, but funnel in some of those dollars from these big organizations that have money to burn. Start putting this in so that way this momentum with the women's game can keep going as well.
Yeah, I think also, when Kathy Carter is sitting here running for U.S. soccer president, and she's herself is saying we've taken the women's national team for granted, there is a need to invest equally in both men's and women's teams. Carlos Cordero himself is saying the women's team should be more respected and valued just as much as the men's team.
Mm-hmm.
But the female players aren't being treated equally. Well, you're the U.S. soccer president. Isn't that kind of your, if you're going to say this, don't you need to stand up for it and make sure that you're equally paying women then?
Exactly. The buck stops with him, and I'm hoping that this even goes not just with soccer, but beyond a lot of other women's sports as well, because eventually the WNBA is going to get wind of this. They should also at least consider working alongside this, because they're in a little bit of a similar situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hopefully it does go to that extent of saying, I don't know. See, that's the thing, and that's the thing too, is I don't think that they're not asking to be paid in NWSL money what the men's players make in MLS money. They're just asking that the national team pay them equally, which I think is certainly fair. And if you think about it, the women are full-time employees of U.S. Soccer, because U.S. Soccer also funds NWSL. Mm-hmm. Whereas the men are part-time employees, because their number one is to whatever they're doing in MLS or out of there, and then they play for the national team second. So, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons that you can bring up why the women deserve and rightfully are fighting for this, but the proof is in the pudding. They're out there playing the same game, the same amount of minutes, and they're giving results where the men are not. And yeah.
They have been consistently, and then who knows, if you bring this into the national team, the NWSL, you could have a lot of good secondary effects, and then let that continue to build. You're finally getting that to a point of stability. Now you need to see that grow and keep up with the level of the women's national team.
Anything else you want to add here, Rachel, on this? Or
just pay the damn women their dues.
Damn right, you heard it. You heard it here. So hopefully we get more good advancements in this lawsuit, and here, hopefully things going towards the women's side. But I'm sure U.S. Soccer will not just take this line down. They're going to fight on their end as well, bringing up those ticket sales, bringing up all the other things, the men draw more, TV ratings, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure they will bring all that up. But, it's also on these. If the Women's World Cup wasn't going on, I don't know that Fox would care so much about these friendlies or She Believes or whatever, They're ramping up their coverage because the Women's World Cup is about to be on pretty soon. It's going to be interesting to see what happens post that. And do they care more, do they care less, depending on how the women do. And just hopefully you have a decision go with their way pretty soon. But we shall now transition into one other thing before we get to Major League Soccer. I should mention the NWSL has just started training camp this week, so they're getting things going. I'm sure once they start playing games and stuff, there'll be more to talk about, but they kind of just released the rosters and everything else. So that's out there if you want to go see, if you have a team that you support or are thinking about supporting, you can go see who's still there, who's been added, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure in the coming weeks, as we're going to do this every Monday night, Tuesday morning for you guys, Rachel will be able to discuss more about that going forward. But so we're going to transition over to the men's game. But first, before we get into MLS, just got to give a shout out to Tyler Adams. He hasn't been at Red Bull Leipzig very long, but he's already been named February Player of the Month for the Bundesliga because he is so vital to RB Leipzig in the games that he's played. 5 starts, 2 appearances off the bench, 1 did not play, and they've gotten points in every game that he's played. He's that vital to the team. And got to give credit to Tyler Adams for going out there and showing that you can go be an American abroad and do awesome.
Americans, not just in England anymore.
Even though Raul Jimenez went out there and showed up for Mexico, getting a goal for Wolfsburg against Chelsea. So go him as well. So Major League Soccer here. It's been 2 weeks, and as I mentioned, personally, our teams are doing well, but other teams are doing well and surprisingly not so well. When you look at who won the league last year and everything, but really quick, going through results before we talk about specific things. Sorry, Eric, but Orlando City, very, very close to getting a win, but they were denied and got 1 point. Columbus beat New England 2-0. FC Dallas beat Galaxy without Zlatan 2-0. Houston beat Montreal 2-1. RSL with a very questionable penalty beat Vancouver 1-0. Minnesota United with a 3-0 slapping of San Jose. Seattle with a 2-0 win. Sporting KC 2-0 over Philly. NYCFC and DC with a 0-0. We'll get into that. Atlanta United with a 1-1 against Cincinnati. Very disappointing. And Los Angeles FC whooping Portland 4-1 thanks to one Carlos Vela. So I mentioned one team surprising there. Atlanta United, they're your champs. And so far in MLS, they have not played well. And Frank DeBoer, who, he didn't have the greatest of time with Crystal Palace. He was already getting DeBoer out signs in Atlanta after this game. Do you think it's justified, though? Just 2 games.
But, I mean, Atlanta United is very, very spoiled. They know that they have firepower with Josef Martinez. They bring in Pity from Argentina. But to me, I get the burgeoning vitriol, but I'm also thinking to myself, and I said this towards the end of last season, you've got Tata Martino. He's gone. And you had really one of the key talisman, Miguel Almiron. He's gone. This is going to be a period of adjustment. Frank DeBoer thinks very, very differently. The more European, more hard-nosed, less finesse, more grit kind of a style. And you have to adapt with how play is really going to flow. And even then, they finally got everybody together to where they can gel under DeBoer's system. So it's a slow start, but no reason to panic 100% yet.
I would say don't panic, but don't use the word spoiled. That is not a word I think fans should hear from your coach or want to hear from your coach. That's not, it's not his fault that Tata Martino was a very attacking-minded coach, and he had players that went around that, but it's also about winning, and when your team goes out and performs the way they have in the first 2 games, yes, they beat Herediano, or they came from behind to defeat Herediano and then went on to perform badly in the first, the next leg of the Champions League. They've shown they can put up points, but again, Herediano is not MLS teams. I would say that they're a bit lesser. They're just, and it's just, yes, there's some getting used to it, but I think blaming the fans for expecting, hey, you're the champs. Yes, you lost Almiron. Yes, Pithi's not the same player. You've got to adjust to him as well. But still, just the way they played is not the way you would expect your champion team to go out there and play. They looked lost at times. Give Cincinnati credit for defending them well, but it's just, it all takes them getting used to. I think it's a little bit overblown on the DeBoer out thing, but also just, you got to be careful with your words as a coach. Those fans are a champion-winning city. They kind of deserve to be a bit boisterous, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, they're also not used to winning a lot of championships, so there's that.
They're not used to winning a lot of championships, but hey, they're going out there and representing for their team. And
they are, and I give them full credit for that. I mean, but if you think about it, I think Atlanta's extra boisterous because they are more used to, outside of the Braves really in the 90s, getting to moments where you have championships and coming up short. I mean, even then, look at the Braves run post-1995. Getting there, losing. Falcons, finally getting there, losing. So when you've got a team that's really got everything together, gets over the hump, lifts the trophy, well, you're itching to kind of get a fast start because you have a shot at doing it again. So I that's where I say that they're spoiled in that, because it's like, okay, you really weren't expected to do what they've done these past couple of years as an MLS expansion team. They're the exception. You're going to see more of what you've seen in these first couple of matches here in 2019. But you just got to sit back and say, yes, this is a process. We hope it will get figured out. And then if you get to 10, 12 games, even halfway through the season, and it's not, then you're going to be justified.
Rachel, moving on here, Seattle has been doing pretty well for themselves, and one new Dutchman certainly has been, over the moon as far as what you'd expect, coming in early with the Sounders, 2 goals in 2 games. What do you think about the way Seattle's been playing, and a certain Kelvin Leerdam as well?
Well, I think the fun thing is that, you have guys like Nico Loderio, Raul Diaz, throw Christian Roldan, and you've got the return of Jordan Morris, and of course a healthy Victor Rodriguez. But the person that scores the first goal of the season and scores the first goal of the next match is your right back defender. And both of these goals, I mean, not taking anything away from Kelvin at all, they were very lucky. It bounced right to him, and shame on the defenses for not marking him and picking him up, because both goals, he just smacked it inside the box past the goalkeepers. The 4-1 victory. I also want to say I have done 2 previews of the Seattle Sounders for our sister site, Last Word on Soccer, and I have gotten both of my predictions right, and this never happens. I probably just jinxed myself, but I'm going strong for week 3. Anyway, it's been fun to watch Seattle, especially because of Jordan Morris's return. It's really brought a spark to their game, and I think even Kelvin Leerdam's play has brought this spark, because it's oh, hey, here's a guy that he's doing his job on defense, but he's also up there scoring goals. And it's just, in both matches, Brian Schmetzer, he said, hey, I'm going with the same formation, I'm going with the same starting 11, and I'm going with the same starting bench, too. I'm going with the same 18. I think Seattle has a lot of confidence right now. I think, to be fair, their schedule early in the season is not the hardest. They have Vancouver they have They have Chicago this week, and then I think they have Vancouver. So, I mean, those aren't the strongest teams, but, I mean, they do have some good attackers on each side. But I think Seattle just is playing with a lot of confidence, and, I mean, it's early in the season, but, I mean, 2 goals from Jordan Morris in the first game, that has to bring some form of life. And those players want to win for him, too, because he was out all last year. He wasn't on that Cinderella run that they had. I think heading into this season, I was a little worried about how he would do with communication with Rui Diaz, but those two have been on the same page. Rui Diaz hasn't missed a beat. He has scored a goal in his last 7 games. So, I mean, the consistency, I'm a big fan of consistency with your starting lineups is great. I think they have the means to do that because they're not in CONCACAF Champions League. So, I mean, it's just keeping consistent and keeping a strong defense, midfield, and attack. And I really think that, you know, on the Sounders, I think Morris is going to give Rui Diaz a run for his money for the Golden Boot. But heck, Kelvin Leardom can win it for all we know.
He could. At the rate he's going, he's tied with so many other players for 2 goals in 2 games. So, you know, he said he wanted to score 5 goals this season. He's already 40% the way there. And you said you were a little worried about Portland as well, your Cascadia rivals, about how they've been performing.
Well, I mean, I can't say I'm too worried because, you know, as a Sounders fan, watching them lose isn't the saddest thing in the world. They got the crap kicked out of them against LAFC. I mean, I know you're going to talk about this later, but, I mean, Carlos Vela, you let the guy have 3 assists and 1 goal. I mean, come on. Portland is going to be on the road until June because of their stadium being renovated. And I think, you know, Portland has always been a pretty decent road team. In their first match, though, they drew 3-3 with Colorado. And I'm kind of sick and tired of the announcers. I know Stu Holden said it this weekend, and I've heard a couple others say it, you know, oh, well, that match shouldn't have even mattered because of the poor weather conditions. Okay, so what? Weather happens. You have to learn to play in those conditions. And it's not like you're in California where it doesn't really, or like LA where it doesn't snow. Like, Portland gets snow. So, I mean, they should know better. But, you know, on the road, I mean, I'm worried that Portland is going to lose X amount of matches or draw X amount of matches and not get enough points. And then when they do return home, you know, there's no consistency and there's going to be a struggle against teams at Providence Park. And I think Portland, like we said, it's early in the season, but I think they need to pick it up before it gets really bad.
Yeah, certainly. You can't wait until you get back to Portland to all of a sudden have this big run. You've got to get a few points here and there and not lag behind too much. The rest of the pack there in the West that are, you know, when we talk about some of these teams that you're going to be going, and they're the ones already scoring some points, and if they get too many ahead, you know, Portland might have too big of a hole to climb out of. Certainly, though, looking past that, I probably perhaps the most surprising thing out of this entire first 2 games, Minnesota United, guys, is technically tied for first. They've won both their games. They've scored 6 goals, and they haven't allowed any either. I mean, the pickups that they've done, of course, taking Ozzy Alonso away from Seattle to bring it over to Minnesota, that was a huge get for Adrian Heath. And then, of course, Iko Para as well. That's provided a great spine. And Darwin Quintero he's played fantastic from last season when he came in. And he's already scoring goals. So keeping this guy happy, the rest of the team is gelling around him. Granted, they haven't played the best competition, but still, you can only play the games that are in front of you, and Minnesota's look good. Adrian Heath. I got to give Adrian Heath some credit, though. He's like, look what happens when I finally have a good team to put out on the field. We win.
And he took Ozzy from me. Ugh.
Damn April snowstorm. It can come right through for all I care. You're still in a hockey state, bro. I mean, you got the Wild doing their thing. The Timberwolves are trying to make a run. Yeah, get these big results now while nobody's paying attention. Go right ahead.
They have more points now than they scored, and they have more points now than a whole lot of last season. So, give them a little bit of credit there.
Why?
I don't know. Be nice to him right now.
Is he still in Orlando?
No.
Then I don't have to be nice to him. QED.
Well, that being said, I think we definitely need to watch out for Minnesota. They keep putting things in here. We certainly might be looking at them, one of those final playoff spots there in the West.
Yeah, maybe, but if I know Adrian, something will go wrong.
You might be right. I mean, there's a lot of season left, so let's let them have their fun for now. That being said, somebody that's having a lot of fun right now, or at least from the last game, Carlos Vela, you mentioned it, Rachel, 3 assists. Not all of them pretty or say, but they led to goals, and that's what matters. And then he got a heck of a goal himself. LAFC, also another one of the teams undefeated in their first 2 games. If you get this kind of production out of Carlos Vela, he's still in that whole, which one are you going to get when the game starts thing. If he can perform more like this for most of the season, I think you seriously got to look at LAFC going forward. Bob Bradley's got to be happy about that. What do you think? Do you think LAFC is going to be a bigger contender this year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have them winning the whole thing, to be quite honest with you. I think just that tandem of Vela, Diego Rossi, Christian Ramirez, Diomandi has been a really great super sub. And just, their defense has been really, it really improved this year. I think they're just an all-around complete team. They've got the depth. And just today, they announced a little connection for me. They just signed one of their draft picks from the University of Pittsburgh to their team. So there's a little bit of a connection there and a bigger reason for me to root for them. But I really think, I honestly think that they're going to win the whole thing. I mean, it's early to tell so far, but that 4-1 win over Portland is convincing, and it's going to make their next opponent quake, I think.
Nice.
They see what you did there.
Mwahahaha.
Well, Eric, I mean, DC's, they're up there in the Eastern Conference, standing so far, holding their own, and one guy that's helping them is Bill Hamid. He got into a goalkeeping show with Sean Johnson on the other side. 0-0 affair, but got to give both of those guys credit for keeping the clean sheets. And the only guy with 2 clean sheets in all of MLS through 2 games, your goalkeeper.
See, this is why I love Bill Hamid. This is why I'm glad he came home. This is why I welcomed him with open arms. And why I'm willing to eat Danish again. Even against Atlanta, we had a great boost. Not just with him in net, but even offensively. Wayne Rooney doing his thing, making me want to get his jersey. Areola making that beautifully timed run, catching a haphazard. Atlanta defense off guard for that first goal. Then we get a second. And even going then against NYCFC, we only had 34% possession. 34%. When it comes to shots, they had us 3-1 ratio. The fact that stayed 0-0, I haven't felt like that since I was watching Roberto Luongo for my Panthers back in the day. It was just that kind of marvel. So, long may it continue. Don't screw this up, Ben. He leaves again. I'm flying up there and going for you. I know where Audi Field is.
So angry about that Audi Field.
Again, why does no one... RFK, it's right there. Right there. Even the Redskins want to come home. Why did you have to leave? Right there. Right there.
They're doing okay, though. Okay. I mean, like, why are you going to hate on being tied for first in the East with 2 games in?
Yeah, because it's 2 games in. Again, Ben, you had me all hopeful. You wanted me to be all happy and cool and thinking everything was fine. And then come playoff time, I had a miserable moment of failure, as I expected. Don't do this to me again, Ben.
I still want, like, I wish we could get, like, some kind of comment from Ben on Erik's hatred.
Look, you know my Twitter, @SquidSportsHead. Come at me. We'll sit down. We'll even bring you on the show. We can talk about this. Don't even want to do that. Trying to grow a beard. What is wrong with you?
You got an impressive beard there yourself, so...
Exactly.
You can show him how it's done, Erik.
Yes, if you want entry into the Brotherhood of Epic Hair, all you had to do, slide in my DMs and ask. I'll tell you the right products, beard shampoos, advice about where to go, different oils and things to use, the right length of comb. Come on now. But no, you couldn't even do that.
The self-promotion minute for Erik. Please go into his DMs so he can tell you how to groom yourself correctly on the next POV. Maybe.
And stay tuned for that one. I have drops now.
There you go. Yeah. I had to edit those. Pretty interesting. So, moving along. Rachel, you have a nitpick with a certain stadium.
Oh, Yankee Stadium. Home of, I hate to admit it, the great New York Yankees. But damn it, maybe the solution is take RFK and put it in New York, because Yankee Stadium is not fit to host a soccer match. That was the most disgusting pitch I've ever seen, and I am a firm believer of not playing soccer on baseball fields. It is done in the USL all too often, and that is why the Harrisburg City Islanders cease to exist anymore. Damn it, just soccer-specific stadium in New York. Have them play where the Red Bulls play. If the New York Giants and the New York Jets can share a stadium, why the hell not? Go do it, or just, move to RFK. I don't know.
I vote to move to RFK. What's wrong with that?
Pretty sure the NYCFC owner would not be okay.
Damn it, if the New York Giants could play in the Yale Bowl in Connecticut, why can't this work?
Yeah, you know what? For a guy that's wealthy, and for as long as NYCFC has been in this league now, you think he would have made a stadium happen?
Okay. All right. If they want to stay, they're precious there, because, come on, Jersey has enough teams, and who really wants to go to Jersey? Let's be real. Correct me if I'm wrong. They built the new Yankee Stadium directly across from the old one, didn't they?
Yes.
Does the old one not still exist?
I thought they demolished it.
Okay, then never mind. My idea goes out the window.
Well, that being said, they've tried for a long time to get NYCFC a stadium. Like, they won it in one of the 5 boroughs, and that's always a hard ask.
Because if they had kept the old Yankees Stadium up before they demolished it, that would have been perfect to model it and have it for NYCFC. Kind of like what the Georgia State did for taking over the old Turner Field.
Yeah, I think they decided to demolish before NYCFC was even going to be a thing. And even then, again, the ownership probably thought, oh, we'll get a brand spanking new stadium. It'll be all state-of-the-art and whatever. And they've had such problems.
Yeah, the Jets thought this. The Jets thought the same thing, and look at what happened to them.
Did they really, though?
Yes, for a while there were talks, $600-700 million amongst friends. But no.
Well, let's focus on your other team here, Eric. Orlando. Dom Dwyer scores one of his Dom Dwyer goals. Just out of nowhere, taking advantage. And then, speaking of out of nowhere, Siya Sapong, in the last possible minute, steals away your 3 points by getting a goal. Go ahead.
5 minutes of stoppage time. You were seconds away. Chicago was down to 10. All you had... Just... No! That's a Ben move. That's not an Orlando move. I expect that up south, not up north, not 2 hours away from you. Oh, Jesus, what is going on? Not to mention, has anybody noticed the absurd number of red cards already this season?
The Marco Fabian one was pretty blatant. That one, I don't think you can take away. But,
dirty.
Yeah. That makes me think of some other international games where you would see this too often, but yeah, I mean, hey, VAR works in certain situations. It didn't in the RSL game where he was blatantly given a penalty that was not a penalty, but what you gonna do? You're still gonna have mistakes sometimes, I guess.
VAR giveth and VAR taketh away.
Certainly, the Champions League would probably say the same. For the European side, anyway. A few other things here before we move on to talking some news. Gyasi Zardes, 2 goals in 2 games in Columbus, leads the East with 4 points, technically tied up there with DC United. And hey, they went all last year with the stuff about save the crew. And everything still played well. You find out your team's getting saved, and what do? Honor that those fans by playing well out of the gate. And what a big grab for Gyasi Zardes and Caleb Porter. He's making it work over there for this guy.
I mean, kudos to Columbus. I hope this keeps up, and who knows? Teams like that, when they're getting resurrected, rising from the ashes, they're the kind of ones that make very, very deep playoff runs. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, certainly. And, yeah, I mean, Dallas, right now, undefeated. Can't get too upset about it. They played tremendously well against the Galaxy, yes, without Zlatan and without Androsini as well, or Alessandrini. But still, Acosta with that ridiculous screamer of a goal, probably a goal of the week. And I got to give it to the way the team's been playing. They're playing a different style than way Pareja was having them play, which I think I'm in favor of. They're being more possession oriented. They kill off the game when they need to kill off the game. They're not just running up and down and hoping to God somebody doesn't score on the other end. I'm really enjoying watching them in these first two games. New England, I think, was just they had like 24 fouls in that first game. It was ridiculous. The way Brad Field's having them play is kind of like obnoxious, honestly. But they got a goal. They held the draw, and so far haven't lost any. Haven't lost. And Luchi Gonzalez got his first pro win this week, so got to give him a lot of credit there. And I'm liking some of the moves they made and going younger as well, and not, you're bringing in some of those guys who we're used to seeing under the Pareja regime, but he's not totally relying on them, and I appreciate that. He's kind of going with his own flair, so a lot of credit there to Mr. Lucci so far and to the team. And that's our 9-4 for this week. Our 9 big thoughts on MLS and our 4-team discussion. So hopefully if you like that, you let us know. Either at Rachael McKriger, at WTM Sean, at Squid Sports Head. And just before we get out of here, man, what's up with MLS and Champions League, guys?
We're crap.
Wah, wah, wah.
I mean, to be fair, Sporting has a chance to,
Don't
do
they
better.
play Mexico?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know about that chance anymore.
Look,
But it's
Sean.
Go ahead.
Sean, think about this. I have a chance to do a lot of things. Some of them I've done. Some of them I haven't. Chances mean what exactly?
A chance, right?
Well, I mean, I have a chance to make more special movies. Am I going to make them? It's a big question mark. Arrangements need to be made. I'm just saying, yes, chances exist, but you have to be realistic here.
I mean, to be fair, Sporting is also not playing a Mexican team, so they're playing in La Chorea. Or they played in La Chorea already, and now they get to go home for the second leg. So they have the best chance of being down 2-1, and they have the away goal. Atlanta United, even though they're going home, to put 3 past Monterrey.
Oof.
Done.
That's a tough one.
Put a nail in that coffin.
Yeah, I mean, the worst week for MLS teams in Champions League history, that's no bueno.
I mean, at this point, I've said it before, and I'll say it now. With no matter how Champions League is designed, you turn it back into a cup form, what have you. With the way that we are, combined with a whole bunch of flukes, I don't know if I'm ever going to see a point to where an MLS team will win it. Maybe we're back here 20 years from now. I'm off somewhere and I listen to this and I scroll through the news and see, yes, it's finally happened. But even then, that's a long shot.
But, I mean, I think they've done a better job with changing the Champions League
into a cup, which is what it is.
Yeah, but it's still a league for the other non-U.S. and Mexico
No,
teams, so.
It's a cup. They have cups as well. And especially for Mexico, they know it's a cup format. They deal with Copa Libertadores, too.
Yep. But, also I think it's difficult when you've got that many games in that span, and MLS is not helping you with your player depth. So maybe you need to do something about that.
Come on, are we really going to rely on old Don to do something sensible and helpful? He's already looking towards TV contracts 3 years from now. His eyes are on his wallet. So really, think about that. You're asking Don to do something about this to help. Think of that carefully.
We got Dawn, Ben, and Jill in tonight.
Yep, that's a win for us here on the show. And certainly Red Bulls and Houston both have tall tasks going to Mexico and trying to return 2 away goals on Santos and Tigres. That's going to be really tough. Don't envy them in the slightest at all. I would say Houston has the best chance of those two, but I wouldn't bet on them if I were you. Anybody. And
I ain't putting my money on my bookie on either of those. Y'all can forget that.
2 big signings here before we get out of here. Joe Corona signs with LA Galaxy. That's a pretty huge move for the Galaxy with Corona coming off a Apertura Championship with Club America in December. And, he did great things with Tijuana as well. So, I think with them buying out Giovanni Dos Santos' contract and letting Ola Kamara go, I think it's going to help their midfield a lot.
I mean, LA, the Galaxy are at this point behind the 8 ball. They want to make LA a soccer battleground again, especially with how LAFC did their first season, how they've come out of the gates now. It's another one of those LA sports rivalries that's burgeoning in the old guard, and the Galaxy want to get back to, at the very least, local dominance. This is a move that could potentially start that again.
You like this move, Rachel?
Yeah, I think Joe Corona's he's a talented player. I think he won with his Mexican League team last season, if I'm correct. Yeah, he's a talented player, and I mean I think he should be on Berhalter's watch, and I think going to MLS is going to help that. And we'll just have to see how he does. I'm excited to see him with Zlatan.
Yeah, another Galaxy player to watch, Efraim Alvarez, is already getting some talk from Mr. Berhalter. And he's 16. So, yeah, use these friendlies for things like that, Mr. Berhalter. Why not?
Don't pull a Jill.
Or
Do not
Bruce.
pull a Jill. Oh, good Lord. Don't you say that name, Sean. Don't you dare say that name.
He is banned from this podcast. And finally,
My life.
banned from life is Mr. Arena. So, I didn't say the B word. So
Mr. Who? Yeah.
No matter how you say it, it's still persona non grata.
And, one of the biggest storylines of the offseason was, what was Toronto FC going to do? Their star player wanted to leave. He finally did. And now you got to replace him. And they seemingly did that with a Alejandro Pozuelo coming in from Racing Genk in the Belgian league. It's the best team in Belgium right now.
They're the only team in Belgium, basically.
That too, I guess. And, he's 27. He's coming in, scoring. And he's going to join them pretty soon here on March 18th. So hopefully he assimilates to TFC well and can keep them going to help out Michael Bradley on the score sheet. And, if anybody else, unless somebody wants to mention something, I think that's going to do it for us on the return episode of Soccer to the Max. Hopefully you enjoyed what you heard here. If you did, you can always hit subscribe. Soccer to the Max you get anytime we do a show. Of course, when there's a men's national team, a women's national team game, we try to be pretty quick about getting some kind of thoughts out there on that. Of course, Women's World Cup is coming up, and the crazy summer that is going to be Copa America, Gold Cup, and Women's World Cup going on at the same time. Who thought of that scheduling? Yeah, nuts. I'm not necessarily looking forward to it that much, but it's going to be a fun time for lovers of international soccer. At least when that comes around, NWSL is going to come around soon, so more for us to talk about then. Make sure you also hit us up on Twitter at WTMSean, at Squid Sportshead, at Rachael McKriger if you want to discuss the beautiful game with one of us. And until next week, we'll see you later, everybody.
Peace.
Adios.